For over 1,000.
I didn't F11 it. Stupendous Wave, once again, makes an appearance. Why the Jedi are actually terrible, but I think you actually have to specify which era's Jedi, anyway, to start with. Because the different eras of the Jedi Order are very different kettles of fish in that way.
For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi were the guardians of peace and justice in the Republic. The words spoken here by old Ben Kenobi was the rhetoric given to us for a long time to who the Jedi were at their core. When the
wait, hang on. What did he say?
Justice in the Republic. The word for over 1,000 generations, the Jedi were.
Yeah, he did say generations. I was just thinking about how so many people think, oh, it's 1,000 years.
The guardians of peace and justice in the Republic. The words spoken here by old Ben Kenobi was the rhetoric given to us for a long time to who the Jedi were.
For anyone that wants.
When the prequel trilogy rolled around, we were treated to seeing the Jedi Order in its
I don't
prime.
read them, though.
The Jedi Knights of the Republic were akin to superheroes, swooping into danger and action to save the day from whatever threat plagued the innocent. At least this is what they were supposed to be doing, and what they once were. In the High Republic, they had it all right, and were steadfast in the ways of the light side. However, as the Sith's long-awaited plan began to finally unfold through Darth Sidious, the dark side of the Force clouded the vision of the Jedi. Because of
I'm not reading the subtitles anyway.
this, they were finished before they had even started. They had lost the war nearly 1,000 years before it had ever begun. We often hear quite a bit about the dogma of the Jedi and their stubbornness.
Yeah, this is a new canon video since he mentioned High Republic and is obviously referencing that. So it's the new canon mindset.
This being one of the key driving factors into Anakin's transformation into Darth Vader. But why is this? Well, stick with us, curious acolytes of the galaxy, as we explore the very extent of the
Oh yeah, the clickbaity title, right?
Jedi's corruption by the time of the Clone Wars. To understand
When was this video? 2 years ago.
their issues, we must first establish a baseline. Like we mentioned earlier, the Jedi of the High Republic era got it mostly right. Although with only 2 novels out at this era, we still have very little besides this information on the High Republic era Jedi. But what we can say is the Jedi were supposed to be peacekeepers first and foremost. They did have their lightsabers, but the weapon of the Jedi was always meant to be more of a tool to build a better society. They were intended to be more like monks than anything else. Throughout each generation of Star Wars, we get a specific feel for how the Jedi of the time operated, just based on what they wore. The Old Republic, many Jedi opted to wear specific types of Jedi battle armor. For a time during the High Republic, the Jedi wore white robes and gold circlets, which gave them a very angelic appearance. Soon the Jedi ironically saw—
What the hell is that lightsaber? On the left. I just look up because I'm like, huh? But I'm like, what the hell is that lightsaber on the left?
While this is somewhat of an arrogant fashion, and didn't want their public perception to appear as though that they were above anybody else, so they
Just
donned the more
dual-wield
brown and tan
lightsabers,
monk-like
bro.
robes we are now more familiar with. Of course, during the Clone Wars, many Jedi generals wore armor similar to the clones, either on their chest plate or arms. In this
Because the clone armor was already made, so they just adopted what pieces that they wanted. It's not rocket science.
is where things fall apart. The day the Jedi ceased to be peacekeepers was the point of no return. Several Jedi, including Master Dooku most notably, saw the end of the Jedi coming a mile away, as they had become far too political. The Jedi's friendship with the Republic—
And for most Jedi would be humanoid size, the clone armor would fit the right size. They might adjust it a little bit, but not have to a lot.
stretches back thousands of years. However, a friendship doesn't mean that they are one and the same. The Jedi were supposed to be acting independently of the Republic and doing what they could as peacekeepers for the entirety of the galaxy.
Until the Russo Reformations, there were even Jedi Supreme Chancellors and stuff. And then they had more separation of Jedi and government.
Fortunately, over the years, the Jedi Order became far more ingrained with the politics of the Republic, and by the time of the Clone Wars, they had become so political that they were outright refusing calls for help from planets that needed it if they did not ally directly with the Galactic Senate. The last straw for Dooku was when they refused to help his home planet of Sereno from invading pirates, simply because they had ceased paying taxes to the Republic. Dooku went to his home world and single-handedly took care of the entire issue himself, although Dooku
I can't fact check it. Because where's it from? He doesn't mention where it's from. I'm assuming they're new canon sources because he's got High Republic and the Clone Wars. As far as I understand it, the most reason that they would have for actually doing that in the EU was because they were spread so thin that they had to prioritize certain targets.
Pirates, simply because they had ceased paying taxes to the Republic. Dooku went to his home world.
If Dooku did it single-handedly, why did they need a task force sent and divert Republic military resources?
And single-handedly took care of the entire issue himself. Although Dooku was especially talented, this just goes to show that sometimes a single Jedi can make all the difference when it comes to mediating or taking care of an issue. But the Order refused to send even one due to their ties with the Senate.
You'd have more issues of planets refusing Jedi's help because they are affiliated with the Republic if it's a Confederacy of Independent Systems aligned planet.
As soon as the Jedi had become generals in the Clone Wars and acting more as warriors for the Grand Army of the Republic, their fate had been cemented and there was no going back. Another issue with the Council was their unwavering arrogance. The Jedi had thought themselves invincible and infallible at this time. So much so that despite how many Jedi were leaving, including Dooku himself, which was a massive blow to the Order, they did not stop to consider that perhaps they were headed down a dark path. They had doubted the return of the Sith and denied that Count Dooku could have been capable of anything
Never mind that this makes no sense in the context of the EU.
close to murder or subterfuge.
There was arrogance in the Jedi Order. Obviously, during the Clone Wars taught them especially that they weren't invincible. And they're invaluable to the war effort just because Jedi are so powerful.
Saw him as a radical political idealist.
But they were arrogant, like it shows Anakin in the movies was arrogant as he does stuff, and they even comment on it in the movies of like, yeah, the new generation of Jedi being arrogant and not really reflecting on the stuff. That's a sort of weird direction to go for the movie
And
anyway.
nothing more. They were grossly unprepared for the war that came upon their doorstep sooner than they knew how to deal with it. Their failure on Geonosis is a good example of this. To be clear, when I say failure, I do not mean the overall battle. I am referring to their incompetency when it came to thwarting the execution. Yes, they were successful, but at the cost of 170 Jedi casualties. 170 out of 200 Jedi died in the conflict at the arena when...
So why would they think that they're invincible and infallible?
Fighting the newly formed droid army. Only was it when they were saved by the clones did they make it out alive.
Yeah, they were surrounded. They had little idea how many droids they had, and they were ambushed, obviously.
Speaking of the clones, that is another situation worth mentioning.
Quality.
Here, the Jedi were so blind.
It's always the quality versus quantity debate in the Clone Wars, because you've got the quality troops, which were the Jedi, then surrounded just by the sheer quantity of droids that so many of them died.
To things going on within their very order that they had no idea that a master had disappeared off the face of the galaxy after secretly ordering the creation of a clone army from a planet that they had allowed to wipe from the archive database. No.
Hold up.
mentioning here. The Jedi were so blind to things going on within their very order that they had no idea that a master had disappeared off the face of the galaxy after secretly ordering the creation of a clone army from a planet that they had allowed to wipe from the archive database.
So first of all, they literally thought that Master Cypher-Dyas died. That's in Attack of the Clones. Obviously it was a cover-up, and Dooku had his plan. And you get that from the movie, you don't need to know any of the extra material. The clone... I think that... What comic was it? He was kept alive by Dooku. Let me double check. Which comic I'm thinking of. Because there's a comic that shows that he's being kept in stasis by Dooku. Star Wars Visionaries, The Eyes of Revolution. I think. Let me double check that. Oh, I don't need to open the OneDrive thing. Hang on. Oh, things are slight lag. There we go. I just need to open documents. Comics would be Clone Wars era Visionaries. Yeah, it's a revolution. So yeah, the Clone Wars I think had a whole Cypher-Dyas thing where he was still alive, but I mean, take the Clone Wars as you will in regard to the EU. So the Eyes of Revolution is the last one. Oh, what's the best way to do this? But Visionaries, technically, is this it? Visionaries was marketed as Infinities, but a lot of the stories work, really. Well, that's prototypes, not that. The propaganda pages are always fun. Yeah, there's more story. Yeah, here. View image. Here. I'll go on the other side, that shows it better. He's frozen him. But then the Cypher-Dyas mystery wasn't ever fully confirmed in an actual published work, other than this is the most we have, other than the Clone Wars. Which is like, you take it or leave it a little bit. Well, obviously his death was a cover-up by Dooku. I would have been very fine with Cypher-Dyas dying, but then Dooku took the name of Cypher-Dyas. Like, he uses Darth Tyrannus, he used Cypher-Dyas to place the order so that he wouldn't be tracked and all that. I thought that was the explanation mainly from the movies of what I thought happened, but then some of the comics went a different way. And technically Visionaries is based off concept art for Revenge of the Sith, and Visionaries may not be fully canon, but a lot of the stuff doesn't conflict, so yeah. Allowed to wipe it. Yeah, like Dooku went up to Jacasa Nu and went, oh, I want to erase Kamino from the archive database. And she said yes.
No doubt it was Dooku who had wiped the archive of Kamino. Either way, it seems as though the Council had barely recognized the name of Sifo-Dyas when Obi-Wan mentioned it to them. Kenobi most likely knew Sifo-Dyas through Qui-Gon, who knew the Master alongside Dooku. It wasn't
So, supposition.
the Master alongside Dooku. It wasn't until many years into the Clone Wars that the Council had even bothered to look into the supposed death of Sifo-Dyas. We see Master Plo Koon investigate the crash of a ship in Season 6 of the Clone Wars, and the fact that he found the missing Master's lightsaber implies that this was the first time they had investigated the wreckage at all. Through both the ignorance of the Jedi and the machinations of Palpatine, they had willingly accepted the clone army as their own despite blatantly suspicious circumstances.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense that they would have left the lightsaber in the wreckage. They would have searched it before, so there's another thing that doesn't really line up in the Clone Wars. And yeah, it's not that weird. Jedi do die.
Regarding its creation, the next point I would like to explore is their stubborn dogma. This was one of the deciding factors of Anakin Skywalker's fall to the dark side. There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is only the Force. When taking a deep examination of the Jedi Code, we can clearly see that almost every line is either false or misused. Case in point in the first line. One of the biggest separations many people had with the Jedi was their unwillingness to show emotion. This can be derived from our world's philosophy of Stoicism, whereas Stoicism teaches appreciation.
Stoicism, not stoicism. Anyway, I'm willing to show emotion is different to I feel like that's a new canon thing.
This can be derived from our world's philosophy of Stoicism, whereas Stoicism teaches appreciation of the moment with temperance of one's mind. The Jedi take it several steps further and deny themselves emotions entirely. This, of course, didn't sit well with the young Anakin Skywalker when he had no outlet for his emotions from his childhood.
Detachment and clearing your mind is a bit different to denying your emotions completely. Like Yoda said, you have to learn to let go of your emotions rather than going with them, sort of thing. When he said that to Anakin, it wasn't what he wanted to hear, but it's the actual thing of like, part of letting go of your emotions is accepting them and then letting them leave, and you don't need to act on them.
And from Padme. One of the worst offenders of this was Jedi Master and Council member Ki-Adi-Mundi. Mundi was rooted in the Jedi dogma so
Mundi.
firmly that he was a borderline sociopath. On his homeworld of Serera, the population was predominant.
Serera, it's Seria. It's auto-generated subtitles, obviously. Yeah. What? You run a Star Wars channel. Why do you pronounce the names like that?
Female, with a male only being born every once in a while. Because of this, the
He said it, Serera.
course didn't sit well with the young Anakin Skywalker when he had no outlet for his emotions from his childhood and from Padme. One of the worst offenders of this was Jedi Master and Council member Ki-Adi-Mundi. Mundi was rooted in the Jedi dogma so firmly that he was a borderline sociopath. On his homeworld of Serera, the population was predominantly female, with a male only being born every once in a while. Because of
He's mixing canons again with this information.
this, the survival of the Sarian people hinged.
Syrian people? He said Syria right there, Syrian right there, so why couldn't he say the planet name? But that's mixing canons again. I don't know if they've just taken that from there and put in a new canon, but That's EU information put in this new canon video.
On the ability to take on many wives and father as many children as possible. Mundi got approval from the council to do this so long as he didn't grow attached to them, and he did just that. In fact, he wasn't attached whatsoever, to the point where he didn't care about his family at all. When a militia attacked Syria and killed all of his wives and children,
he doesn't even pronounce it correctly. He's like Syria. Oh, Surera. Oh.
didn't even care. He also had a tendency to refute unlikely events.
This is not I guess they redid something in the new canon then, because that's not true in the EU. The comics, he actually saved his wife or wives.
He also had a tendency to refute unlikely events. For example, he doubted Qui-Gon Jinn's revelation that the Sith had returned, arguing that such a notion was impossible because they had not been sighted for a millennium. He also was dubious about Count Dooku's possible involvement in an assassination attempt on Senator Padme Amidala, believing he was incapable of violence or murder because of his Jedi past. When Ahsoka Tano was framed for treason, the evidence against her, as well as the wish to keep the relationship between the Jedi Order and the Galactic Senate undamaged, led Mundi and the Council to expel Tano from the Order and turn her over to the Republic military. However, after her innocence was proven and the real traitor apprehended, which of course was revealed to be Barriss Offee, Mundi joined his colleagues in offering to reinstate Tano into the Order, praising her efforts to prove her innocence and stating that she had shown the true sign of a Jedi Knight. The Jedi had been fully ready to expedite one of their own just for the sake of keeping their relations with the Republic intact and healthy. Their dogma did more than just this, but outright destroyed them. For 1,000 years, they had trained to fight the same Sith on the battlefield by the Force and by the lightsaber. What they had been blind to was the fact that the Sith had evolved beyond these means. In his fight with Sidious,
I mean, in the EU, if anything, they hadn't trained to fight the Sith for 1,000 years because they thought the Sith were destroyed. They thought the Sith were dead. They might have secretly been trying to train a little bit more around the time Darth Gravid made them aware of the rule of two and that, but still.
and by the lightsaber. What they had been blind to was the fact that the Sith had evolved beyond these means. In his fight with Sidious, Yoda recognized this, and finally saw that the Jedi had lost from the very beginning before Order 66 had even been conceptualized. It no longer mattered whether he defeated Palpatine or not. The Chosen One was lost to the dark side, and the Order was in ruin. The very Republic they had sworn to defend and compromise their values for was now completely and utterly against them. Even during Mace's attempt to arrest Palpatine, he botched it completely. In the Revenge of the Sith novelization, the arrest scene was longer with a lot more dialogue. Windu had attempted to arrest Palpatine purely on the pretenses of him being a Sith, not even mentioning any war crimes. It went like this. Mace exclaims, "You're a Sith Lord," to which Palpatine expertly
He actually cited a source for once. Wow.
responds, "Am I? Even if this is true, that's hardly a crime. My philosophical outlook is a personal matter. In fact, the last time I read the Constitution anyway, we have very strict laws against this type of persecution, so I ask you again."
Okay, you listed a source. Let me... Yeah. It's been many years for me. What was the quote he was saying again?
It went like this. Mace exclaims, "You're a Sith Lord," to which Palpatine expertly responds,
Okay, you're a Sith Lord.
"Am I? Even if this is true, that's hardly a crime. My philosophical outlook is a personal matter. In fact, the last time I read the Constitution anyway. We have very strict laws against this type of persecution. So I ask you again, what is my alleged crime?" Here, the Jedi are still trying to fight the war by lightsaber, and
So he's just cherry picking the quote. Because there's a lot more context to it. But it's Palpatine doing what he does best. He's manipulating and challenging things. Like, Palpatine knows that he could win a court case easily with that kind of defense. Like, he's thought of everything. He planned it out.
haven't even grasped the implications of a Sith Lord controlling the Republic and war from the
That makes sense too. Because he says about constitutional
very beginning.
authority
Master
and whatever
Yoda had
too.
seen the end of the Jedi coming through visions, but kept it to himself. He knew that the Jedi were failing, and they were beyond all hope. Yoda deep down knew that it was time for the Jedi to die and be reborn. The Jedi Order had to be remade despite the cost, so Yoda stayed silent. He found a hiding place on the planet of Dagobah right next to the Darkside Nexus cave so his Force signature would be masks from Sidious. When the future came and the Jedi Order was remade by Luke Skywalker, he was very well aware of the Jedi's failings and sought to fix all of their mistakes in the next generation. In Luke's new order,
Pick a timeline, dude.
he not only allowed Jedi to marry, but even went as far as to encourage it, as he believed the strongest connection with the Force came from love, a lesson he learned from Darth Vader. Love that could only be felt with one's family and loved ones nearby, not to mention
Earlier he goes on about the High Republic, and it's all new canon context, and now it's expanded universe context, but I don't know if they borrowed some of that for new canon anyway.
be felt with one's family and loved ones nearby. Not to mention, two Force sensitives would potentially breed more Force sensitive children in the galaxy. He was a lot more relaxed with his order and allowed his Jedi to carry on with more personal freedom and accountability. Some did indeed go out to planets to help out, while others went on their own business, one of which was able to carry out her duties as a queen of her own home planet while still being a Jedi. This doesn't mean that Luke Skywalker's Jedi help out, while others went on their own business, one of which was able to carry out her duties as a queen of her own home planet while still being a Jedi. This doesn't
even know the name of Tenel Karjo. Or Tenenial Kar, I think it is. Doesn't even know the name of it. Yeah.
mean that Luke Skywalker's Jedi Order didn't have its major complications and problems.
I mean, all of this is meant... You can look at the Revenge of the Sith novel for a lot of it, because it's got Yoda, even in the movie, realising that they failed and the Order needs to change. The Revenge of the Sith novel just expounds on that a bit more. But the Revenge of the Sith novel, anything that's not in the movie is not canon to the new canon. So the novel's effectively not canon to the new canon. He mixes canons too much to be able to pick a timeline anyway.
But it is still far superior from the Jedi that were around during the Clone Wars era. Needless to say, the fall of the Jedi was very necessary despite all of the hardship that came with it. But what do you think? Do you believe that the Jedi were as bad as they say? Was there potential for them to be
Who's they?
saved during the Clone Wars era? And tell us your thoughts and comments down below. And as always, may the Force be with you, and I hope you have a great day.
I think that the EU was, if true change had come about, yeah, terrible's just clickbaity title. If true change had come about, then again, Order 66 had to happen so that they could realise the flaws of the Jedi Order. Otherwise, it would have kept getting worse. and even things, I don't know. I just look at it as a mixed canon video, and it's like, well, obviously I don't know the new canon, so I'm not supposed to know an explanation for it. Because